Our service is about to begin. I would ask if you have a cellular device to please turn it to the off position. Officiating our service today will be Rabbi Jeremy Fine from B'nai Tikva congregation.
The Jewish people respond to death with 3 words of blessings. Baruch Dayan Ha'emet. Praise be the judge of truth. Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. God has given and God has taken, and through it all we continue to remember Robert's name, his life, and his memory. In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under the heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. Robert was preceded in death by his parents Joseph and Mildred, his siblings Joseph Jr. and Jim, his best ex Leslie, his children Jared and Corey, and his grandchildren Peyton and Hunter. We turn to Psalms for words of comfort. Psalm 23, a Psalm of David. Mizmor leDavid Adonai ro'i lo echsar. Bitno deshe yarbitzeni almei menuchot yancheni. Navshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek laman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha hema yachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai. Dishanta b'shemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov achezid yirdafuni kol yemei chayai. Vishavti b'veit Adonai le'orach yamim. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads beside me in the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for art thou with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We're going to call on Robert's son, Jared, to say a few words.
My friends that are here will understand this speech probably the most, because especially the opening line. When I think of my dad, a few words come to mind, but the one that stands out most was fun. He was definitely fun. In a lot of ways, he was like a child who never grew up. As an only child growing up in a divorced family, I knew that my weekends and a few vacations a year were with Dad. He always made the best of our time together. He was always up for an adventure, a road trip, and we took many, especially if there was a national park involved. We went to Yellowstone, Yosemite, Grand Tetons, Smoky Mountains, Grand Canyon, to name a few. He loved Brown County, Indiana. And we went there several times. We went on multi-day river trips and brought our bikes to ride around parks. Scuba diving in the Caribbean and traveling to Europe. He loved the outside. He was always fun. I will never understand how he came up with so many activities in a world without internet and cell phones. He loved music. We went to many concerts. U2, In Excess, the Rolling Stones were a few that we saw. As much as he loved outdoors and music, his cars were his passion. He loved everything about his cars. He restored a few old Jaguars, attended many car shows and auctions, and he was proud to have the highest ranking Jaguar in the country for a few years. He would go almost every year to the Barrett-Jackson car auction in Arizona. And I was fortunate enough to join him on a few of those years. Many of my friends this week have referred to him as a legend. He was. When I was in college, he was as much a friend as he was a dad. He went to the bars with my friends. We always had a good time. He was the social chair at his fraternity in college, so it was no surprise that he liked parties and everything that came with them. He loved having fun. He loved the city of Chicago and everything about it. He was not a huge sports fan besides Chicago sports teams, but would watch and attend as many Cubs and Bears games as he could. He had Bears season tickets and went to as many as 25 Cubs games a year, always liking to sit in the bleachers. He loved the architecture of the city and loved to photograph it whenever he could. He also loved his family and especially Peyton and Hunter. He took them to a couple Indy 500 races and instilled his love for cars and adventure with them as well. He was never a flashy guy, but he always took care of his family. He paid for my college and gave me a place to live when I graduated, provided the rent was on time. He created college funds for his grandchildren that he funded up until his death and didn't tell anyone about. He quietly purchased a family plot at the cemetery to ensure that his heirs would always have a place in the city. The legacy he left will never be forgotten. And in many ways, I'm a mini him, a kid who never grew up. Diehard Chicagoan who loves music, cars, national parks, and the outdoors, and most of all, family. It is 100% fitting for him to be laid rest at Graceland, one of the oldest and most revered spots in Chicago. He will be 4 blocks from Wrigley Field and be with the legends and titans that made Chicago the best city in the world. He will fit right in as a legend in his own right. Rest in peace, Dad. We will miss you.
Our biblical Joseph is the most fascinating character to me in the entire Bible. Why? Because no matter what twists and turns in the world hands him, he always makes the best of the situation. And as Jared and Corey described Robert's life, I thought of a man who loved an adventure, a cocktail and a show, cars or otherwise. Robert enjoyed the life he lived, and that is the man we are here to celebrate and to remember and to mourn. Born on New Year's Eve, 1944, in Indianapolis, Robert's father, Joseph, worked many years for the Industrial Heating and Air Company, which sustained the family. He was raised by his mother, Mildred, and his brothers, Joseph Jr. and Jim. He went to high school with David Letterman and loved attending Indiana University, where he graduated with a business degree. The family took lots of road trips together, built forts, played cowboys and Indians in the backyard. Joseph and Mildred were in the same house even until Jared was born. After college, Robert moved briefly to Cincinnati to work for IBM and then came to Chicago. Began working at the Chicago Tribune in ads and sales, but then landed at Crain Communications, where he worked for 30 years and dedicated his life's work to. Robert and Leslie got married in 1970 and had Jared in 1974. And while they were divorced, while Jared was young, as he mentioned, Robert was always referred to Leslie as his best ex and they would frequently, the three of them, have dinners together. Robert enjoyed every aspect of life. He loved his career and was often met with an after-work cocktail. He played the stock market, loved his Chicago teams, the Cubs, the Bears, and the Bulls. And it was no wonder that he's being buried that close to Wrigley Field. He appreciated Bobby Knight and was happy Jared and Corey went to IU because he loved Indiana. He was a Sig Ep. He loved a good adventure, river rafting, national parks, bike riding Mammoth Cave, being out in nature, road trips with Jared, and like he did with his own parents. And he lived much of his adult life facing the Lincoln Park Zoo. But his true passion, as we heard, was cars. People joked that cars were his kids. In his home, he had pictures of his cars right next to his pictures of Jared. He loved classic cars, British cars. He collected, he showed, he restored. And when he went to shows all over the world, Jared still has a 2005 Lotus. Robert owned multiple cars at a time, and his passion expanded. He went to the Indy 500 and NASCAR. The family would go with and watch him exhibit cars as well. Jared described his father as a good father who took care of people quietly. Jared recalled his father giving him an apartment, though rent was due on time. He opened 529s for his grandchildren and beyond. As a grandfather, he cherished Peyton and Hunter. He would always bring them Matchbox cars and talk through as they walked through the zoo with him. As the father-in-law, Corey described Robert as great, loving, and always gave her high praises. As Jared and Corey explained to me the life of Robert, it was clear that Robert loved living the best life he could. His passion was smiling and enjoying the time that he had on this earth. It didn't replace hard work or responsibilities, but it did drive him every day. To this, he was like our biblical Joseph. We do not always know what is around the corner, but we can always enjoy the moments we have. I'd like to leave the family with a few words of blessing taken from Robert's life. To Peyton and Hunter, always think of the next person you will meet. Sometimes the small gifts, like a Matchbox car, can leave a lasting impression. Show the people in your life that you love them. To Corey, welcome everyone into your family like Robert did, with love and high praise. And to Jared, enjoy moments. Enjoy the special love you have with your wife. Enjoy the special time you have with your children, because having fun is important, but it's also far greater doing it with the people you love. And may we all drive through life with hard work, deep emotions, and a smile on our face. May Robert's memory forever be for a blessing, and let us all say, Amen. Just a moment, we're going to eventually proceed for those who can join us at Graceland Cemetery. Before we do that, we are going to rise for the El Malei Rachamim, the prayer we say when we reach a moment in our life we believe that exhorts the soul unto God. I'll ask everyone to rise at this time. El Malei Rachamim, Shochanen Baromim, Hamitzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, Bemalot Kiddushim Utorim, Kizoah Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat David ben Abraham v'Sara Shalach Lolamo, Began Eden Tiem Nuchato, Ana Bal Harachamim, Hastirahu B'Tzeter Kinafech Lolamim, Utzror B'Tzror HaChaim, Et Nishmato, Adonai Nachlato, V'Anuach B'Shalom HaMishkavo, B'Nomar, Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure, to the soul of Robert, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful one, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up with the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. You may be seated.
This concludes our service here in the chapel. The interment will take place immediately at the family plots at Graceland Cemetery, 401 North Clark Street in Chicago. Following the interment this afternoon from 4 to 7, the family will be sitting Shiva at Max and Benny's. This information is included in your service folder. For those of you who are online, that information is available on our website. Please note that the family has asked that memorial contributions be made to the Lincoln Park Zoo. That information is also included in the service folder and online. For those of you who are going to be going in procession today, please make sure you obtain an orange funeral safety sticker. The sticker should be placed in the front passenger side of your windshield. We would also ask that you have your bright headlights and flashing hazard lights on at all times. For an additional measure of safety, our staff will be placing magnetic flags on vehicles throughout the procession. As we drive in procession today, please drive as closely as safety permits to the vehicle in front of you. We want to avoid any large gaps in the procession. This is especially true as we move through the intersections. I'm going to ask everyone to please rise as Mr. Niesse and the family are escorted from the chapel.